When most people think of Maine, they picture the coast, Portland, Bar Harbor, a lighthouse or two. But drive a little farther inland, or north, or west, and you start to see a different side of the state. The smaller towns, the ones people pass through without realizing how much is happening there. I've been spending time in these places lately, and they all have their own rhythm. Creative, quiet, hardworking. So today we'll hit a few of them. Western, Central, Midcoast, and Northern Maine, 4 towns that say a lot about what life here really feels like. We'll start in the West, where an old mill town found new life in the arts. Norway used to be a quiet mill town. Today, it's one of Western Maine's most creative little communities, full of artists, small businesses, and just enough edge to keep things interesting. We've seen this place transform. People are coming here for the same reason we stayed. It feels alive again. There's a pride here that's contagious, and you can still buy a home near the lake for what a studio apartment costs in Portland. We came to the Wooknook here in Norway, which was phenomenal, came highly recommended, absolutely can see why. The food was great, they've got live music in there. I had a burger and some fries, which were incredible. And I know this doesn't sound like it's amazing, but the kale salad was, as my photographer Cece said, fire. Absolutely awesome. Next stop, Central Maine, a town that's all about lakeside living and keeping things simple. You may not see Monmouth in most travel guides, but that's exactly why it's worth talking about. It's a small Central Maine town where art, farming, and everyday life blend together in a way that feels quietly balanced. Homes are still affordable, the commute to Augusta or Lewiston is easy, and community events from the Apple Fest to town parades fill the calendar. It's the kind of place that reminds you that quiet doesn't mean empty. You'll find a professional theater company performing Shakespeare inside a century-old hall, and just outside of town, acres of working farms that keep the landscape alive.
Cumston Hall is the big beige castle in the middle of town. That's what I tell people. And when they ask, what does that mean? I say, it's a building that was built in 1900, and it was a very unique spot that's been around for 125 years, and it really is the center of town. It was donated by Charles Cumston. It cost $20,000 when it was first proposed in 1899. It was finished in 1900. So I would say that the history makes it different, the legacy that is behind Cumston Hall, and the designer, Harry Cochran, was from Monmouth. So it's basically not only just a monument to that period of time, the early 1900s, but also a monument to Monmouth. It's got a very Victorian feel to it. You're gonna see over 100 stained glass windows. You're gonna see plaster work that is very unique and repeated throughout the building. You're gonna see colors that are soft. I mean, a lot of these are natural colors. You see a sunset in Monmouth at a certain time of the year, and it's that same pink that is all throughout the building. So those sorts of little touches, if you look at some of the plaster work, you see little faces, little shells, little things that I feel like are a part of that kind of lasting impression that Cochran kind of left here with the building. And it was meant to be around. It's been here for 125 years, and it basically looks now like it did when it was first opened. I just think that it's a great example of what happens when creativity, funding, and civic-minded people get together and want to try to improve their community. And even though it has been around for 125 years, theater companies, lectures, everything has been at Cumston Hall, and that's what makes it special, because it is a legacy place that we hope future generations will be able to enjoy.
From the hills and lakes of central Maine to the calm edge of the sea, let's head to the Midcoast. Castine is the kind of town that makes you slow down without trying. It's one of the oldest settlements in New England, and somehow it's managed to hold on to its soul. Quiet, historic, and beautifully unspoiled. Everywhere you look, there's history, but people actually live here. You'll see students from the Maine Maritime Academy grabbing coffee next to families who've been here for generations.
Castine is as quaint of a New England town as you could imagine. I mean, we are a small village, but we have a great bookstore. We've got a couple of great inns. We've got, a few great shops that are open year round, and then some more that are open in the summer, and being able to go down to the town dock and have lunch at Dennett's in the summertime and watch the boats come in. We have, incredible scenery and of course access to the ocean, as well as access to the Penobscot River on one side and the Bagaduce River on the other side. This place is steeped in history, beginning with really important Wabanaki history. This peninsula is really significant to the Wabanaki understanding of Maine and this place. And then it continued to be really important throughout the colonial period and through the American Revolution and the War of 1812. You can still see and feel that history in such a way that is very different than a lot of other towns that have had significant changes in the architecture of the place. We have one of the most intact historic town commons in all of New England. Most small towns used to have a small town common like this. Around us is the Unitarian Universalist Church. We have a couple of private homes that are our neighbors that are historically significant homes, including a home that was occupied by the British during the War of 1812, a home that was the home of Noah Brooks, who was Abraham Lincoln's personal secretary and was a close friend of Abraham Lincoln, as well as a home that was occupied by a famous writer in the 1950s. And then we have our Adams School, which is our town's elementary school. It serves 50 students from pre-K through 8th grade, so it's a small, very small, classic elementary school. And directly across from us on the common is our town's libraries. Our mission is to conserve and to tell the story of Castine's history and to make it inspiring and relevant to everyone. So for us, that means that we do our best to ensure that the archives of Castine, our historical objects, are all kept and safe and displayed. Our archives, we are in the process of digitizing everything so that it is freely accessible to everyone online. We not only serve as an archive and a museum, but we also serve as a gathering place for our community. We work with our schools, as well as even our daycare, to give tours to the kids, to try to instill that passion in other students. We have internships and things like that, and do our best to work with the rest of the community to bring them into the Historical Society in different ways and host events that attract a wide variety of people, both in Castine and then, off neck, as we say here, which is people who live outside of the village, further up the peninsula towards Bucksport and the rest of the Blue Hill Peninsula. So, we try to collaborate with other institutions to ensure that that happens.
While the rest of the coast gets crowded in July, Castine feels like a deep breath, a reminder that not every beautiful place needs to be discovered. Now let's trade the salt air for the pine trees and head north. Millinocket was a paper town for generations. When the mill shut down, people left, but the town stayed affordable and surrounded by some of the best wilderness in New England. For a lot of people, that combination is starting to matter again. Homes here are still within reach, and you're just 15 minutes from Baxter State Park. It's hard to find that mix anywhere else. Baxter's about a 15-minute drive from downtown. It's one of Maine's largest protected areas, over 200,000 acres set aside by former Governor Percival Baxter to stay forever wild. No paved roads, no cell service, just the mountain and the woods. Millinocket's the last real stop before you get there. Millinocket's no longer a mill town, but it's still a working town, supporting Baxter visitors, trail crews, and small businesses that depend on the park. The population's smaller than it once was, but the community's steady. Maine isn't just one story. It's 1,000 little ones told in towns like these. Different towns, different people, all finding their own way to make life work here. If you love seeing the real side of Maine, hit subscribe, and let's keep exploring together.